I just had to sit there and be in what am I missing? And what I figured out was that the nervous system was the key to the whole thing. Identity and nervous system. I was working on my thoughts. I was trying to be better with my feelings. I was doing all the right actions. I don't know if you guys ever been in that space where you're like, I'm doing what they say in the books and the podcast, but it's not working. Well, there's something above the books and the podcast and all that stuff. And it is, do you have the identity? And at the time, I had the infrastructure for $36,000 a year, $8 in my account. I had the infrastructure and the embodiment around surfing, doing transcendental meditation. I was doing all the spiritual stuff, but I was not working on the identity and the somatic body when it came to money and business and holding more.
All right, let's get everybody oriented. I know if you see in the background, I've got some strange man sitting on my couch back there behind me with Nala at his feet. He just showed up at my front gate about 20 minutes before the call started. He's actually, many of you know, is Mark Rose. He was our videographer at our conference in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And he's back here with me this weekend, and he's going to be here for a TPI weekend workshop and doing some more photographing and videoing. So it's good. And Nala is so happy that she just knows Mark came to visit her. Oh yeah. Yeah, they're best friends already. So first question I've got to ask you, Preston, just to get this started. Have you always had that amazing sense of style? I mean, I can look at your house behind you and it's just beautiful. Now, maybe we can credit your wife with that. I don't know, but I suspect I suspect you had a little bit to do with it. Where did your sense of style come from?
Yes, man. First of all, thank you. Thank you. I've just been ruminating and sitting in this beautiful energy, and that song was so primal and dope. And I just thank you. Thank you for being who you have been. Thank you for being an elder more than an older. Thank you for being a gangster of love and leading the way. And thank you for calling in all of these really magical dudes, including Mark Rose's mustache, which is a special thing that gets to be highlighted as much as possible. That is the ugliest mustache I've ever seen in my life, and it's also the sexiest. Mark, we love you. So to kick this thing off around the whole fashion, to me, it's art, it's expression. I believe that the fruit doesn't belong to the tree. The fruit belongs to the ecosystem. And each of us is our own tree. And how our tree expresses and reaches towards the sun is the gift. It's the gift back to the tree. It's the gift to the ecosystem. And so it's the conversation of if you smelt it, you dealt it. Right? Like if
I've heard that before. I've heard that.
Yes. If there's something handwritten on your soul, that's yours to bring forward. And to me, my handshake with the entity that I call God is that I will express the gifts, talents, and abilities that thing has given me in all aspects. Not just when the camera's on, not just when, certain people are watching, but just like literally, what would it look like to have my whole life be art and not try? Because there's a big difference between just buying, expensive stuff to look a certain way than there is to just loving combinations and palettes and using everything as art and expression.
Yeah. And you do that beautifully. I love that the fruit doesn't belong to us, and there's an expression of God written on our soul. And so I love the way you show up in the world, and I found I've been reading through your new book, Spiritual Millionaire, and I'm just getting going. I'm loving it. And you say in there, I come off as 50% Deepak, 50% Tupac. And I thought, that's actually a pretty good description of how you walk the planet. And you, again, I've been around you when you're not on camera, and you're the same person on or off camera. It's just nonstop energy whether you're on or off camera, just showing me around your house and your cars and your land and just your energy. I love it. All
Thank
right,
you.
I've got now only about 25, 30 minutes left with you because we're going to give the guys time to ask you questions. And I got so much stuff I want to talk with you about. I won't have time, so I'm going to have to discipline myself. Let's start with, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing men today?
Um, elders, elders, people who not only know the way, but go the way and show the way. I think that most of us were raised by well-intentioned mothers who tried to beat out as much of the wild masculine that they were hurt by. And a good portion of us, I'm 45, grew up during a time where dads weren't necessarily around. And some of us didn't get dads that were, conscious, you know, pillars. And so I had to learn, and a lot of the men I've coached and held space for, whether they're 20 years older than me or 20 years younger, most of those men have had the experience of figuring out how to be a man by way of television, by way of music, by way of other boys. And so it's like the blind leading the blind. And to me, the biggest missing piece is the pillar, is the elder that says, I'm a motherfucking monster. Look at me. This is how you do it. This is how you stand as a man. This is how you take care of a woman. This is how you discipline a child. This is how you apologize when you're wrong. This is how you step back in the room emotionally when you want to run. This is how you show your kids how you express your anger. Most of us did not get that dad nor that grandfather. And so to me, one of the biggest challenges is just men like us putting our hand up, flying our freak flag and saying, you can follow me this way.
Oh, I love it. And I've been on a quest. I know John Wineland's a good friend of yours, now a neighbor. Well, you were neighbors back out in Southern Cal, now back in Austin. You're both neighbors again. I know you guys are in a men's group together, have been for years. And I remember when I was for years doing John's men's program. Um, so much good work. Oh man, it just leveled me up in so many ways. But
Mm-hmm.
after a few years, I talked with John. I mean, John, I consider him a good friend as well as my coach. He's been in my home. I've been in his home. Um, I said, John, I need help becoming an elder. You're teaching us how to deal with all the challenge, that young men have to deal with, how to ground
Yes.
ourselves, how to breathe. And I said, I've done that, been there, done that. I need assistance being an elder. And I said, and where are the other elders in the men's movement? I
Facts.
mean, I've been, but as I've been asking that question, where are they? I'm finding them. They're coming to
Mm-hmm.
me. I talked with
Mm-hmm.
a guy just the other day, a guy named Jed Diamond, 81 years old, been writing books for men for forever, and he's going to come on a call in a couple months. And I keep trying to get these elders on these calls, Warren Farrell, Robert Augustus Masters, because we're all gonna die, but I'm trying to get the older guys on here sooner rather than later, because we need the elders. I'm in so much in agreement with you. And yeah, one of the reasons, we introduce ourselves on the call, we say our first name and say son of.
Mm.
And some people have a hard time with that. And good, I'm happy. Some people have even quit because they go, I'm not
Yeah.
going to say my father's name. And I go, you don't have to. You can say you're son of the cosmos, whatever you want to do. But the goal is to connect us with our masculine heritage for good and for bad. And
Facts.
and there's a Native American tradition that as we do our work, we're healing 7 generations back, 7 generations forward.
Forward. Yeah.
And so I love challenging men to actually say their father's name because I
Mm-hmm.
suspect every man on this call has got a father wound, that we
Facts.
had less than perfect fathers. And I've always said that, in fact, I think I'm going to do a series of lessons somewhere down the road this year about healing the father wound on these calls.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I say that, I get a lot of nods from the guys on the call. Our
Big.
fathers were set up to be imperfect fathers because our ancestors were raised by a tribe of good men. How
Hmm.
can one flawed human who never got initiated himself raise a boy in all the ways a boy needs to be raised? So you're right. We need elders, which brings me to the next question I've got on that I wanted to ask you before we actually just start, riffing more.
Yep.
You've got four children, right? That's
Hmm.
last count, four. At least
Yes.
last picture I looked at, there were four. Remember when I went to visit you? I thought you still just had one kid. I thought, man, there's toys everywhere around here. I don't know if they were
Okay.
yours or the kids, but it's of four kids. Your childhood you've written about was less than ideal. You tell one story of your best friend who was shot and killed on a
Hmm.
night that you were going to go hang with him, but you decided to stay home instead, and he got killed. And so we need not only elders, we need initiation
Hmm.
for our young men. And
Yes.
the communication I keep receiving, because I'm tail end baby boomer. Generation X has come after me. My son's a millennial. He's 39. Then we got Gen Z. And I see more and more nice guys, more and more lost boys, more and more
Yes.
men just hanging out what I call the nursery. Everything's
Yes.
pushed to them. Internet's pushed, entertainment's pushed, pornography's pushed. They order their food on Uber Eats. They're playing video games. Nothing's challenged of them, and it's not their faults. They've
Hmm.
not had, nobody has initiated. How do we initiate our young men to help avoid the extremes? Because I look out there right now, I think we do have two extremes for young men.
Hmm.
One is
Yep.
to go maybe what you saw as a young man towards gangs or maybe materialism or red pill or Andrew Tate. We got the extremes on one end. But
Yep.
then on the other end, we got a bunch of Peter Pans. I don't want
Yep.
to grow up hanging out in the nursery. So we've got those two extremes for men of probably every age and down. How do we do a better job reaching out and initiating young men in our communities and in this world?
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's a loaded question, man, and it's going to be multifaceted and multi-layered. The easiest, shortest answer is we get to the youth by promoting and backing those who they can look at and see themselves in, and then raise them up. It's literally what Andrew Tate is in that sense. It's what Ty Lopez was, 10 years ago when he did his, here in my garage with my Ferraris, and then he showed you the books and said, I got these Ferraris because I read these books.
Mm.
And these guys are the in between to to what is next. Here's what I will say. I have faith that the younger generations will get tired of their own bullshit and initiate themselves as well. I think that there's a thing that happens where things just cycle, right? You look at nature, just cycles and seasons. And I think we're coming to the end of this sort of like TikTok-y, dancey, uh, ultra feminine dude era. And we have this, current president who sort of is putting his flag in the ground and saying, hey, this is the new era. And that's not necessarily resonating. It is for some, but for a lot, it isn't. But it's somewhere in that range. It's why the Zuckerbergs are saying we need more masculinity in X, Y, and Z. And the only place the Zuckerbergs and the Dana Whites and all those guys can go is like, oh, well, I guess we just go with this sort of Republican Party thing. But to me, there's going to be another that's deeper and doesn't need the political part to it. And
Mm.
for all Republicans, Democrats, whatever you are in here, I'm neither one of those. So hear me speaking as a person who's for humanity. And I'm also really good at just looking at patterns and at people and at humans and going, what is going on? And we want to belong. And the the sort of and excuse my French here. I don't mean this, but I'm using terminology that I've heard the kids say. The soy boy thing is on its way out, and those kids are now going, well, where the fuck do we go?
Yeah.
And if there isn't a place to go, I will attach to this thing over here until I can figure out what the next thing is. To me, that's what's occurring right now.
Yeah, I see that, and it often takes swinging from one extreme to the
Hmm.
other. We probably had to
Hmm.
swing from, the extremes and abuses of patriarchy
Hmm.
over to toxic masculinity to figure out, okay, that didn't work, but that doesn't work either. And
Yep.
then I don't think we swing back somewhere in the middle because I don't know where the tipping point is between two toxic extremes. I think we rise up from that place.
Yes.
We evolve in a way. And, I think an example, because I'm listening to you. When I became single in my late 40s, I kind of got introduced to the new, the burgeoning pickup world.
Hmm.
Neil Strauss had written The Game. There was that stuff going on. I read that. And
Yes.
what's been interesting over the last 20, 25 years, I've watched guys that were saying, peacock, put a big feather in your hat, walk around in a tutu, do this, do that, play games, hypnotize, NLP. They kind of evolved from just that shallow geek with technique into no, you need more social presence. You need to know how to really truly connect with a person. You need to know how to go deep with somebody. So even these guys that were saying, put a peacock feather in your hat, are now
Yep.
saying, let's go deep. So there does seem to be, for many of us, a natural maturing that we go
Yep.
from whatever that flashy, quick, easy thing is to wait a minute, I need challenge. I need something deeper. And
Facts.
I've seen that happening. When I do interviews, you and I were both mentioning, we do a lot of these a week, both of us. I tell people all the time, I'm an optimist. I am optimistic about where things are moving in this world.
Same.
I really
Same.
am. I'm not like, oh no, we're going to hell in a handbasket. No, I'm going, oh no. Things are much better than that they were when I started my own personal recovery about 30 years ago. There are
Yep.
now so many more good resources that did not exist 30 years ago. And people like you, I'm just so grateful that it's out there.
Yep.
All
I
right,
agree.
let's transition a little bit. Um, What's a spiritual millionaire? And what's the difference between wealth and money?
Mm. Okay. Another big conversation.
Well, you've
Short,
written a book about it, so I'm teeing you up, man.
correct. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, the short of it is, to me, a spiritual millionaire is anybody who not just believes, but understands and operates from more than enough. Believes, understands, operates, and celebrates their lives from the consciousness of all my needs are met. Therefore, everything else is a cherry on top. I have a belief that spirit, God, Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, whatever you want to call that thing, can only do for us what it can do through us. And I'm going to say that again. I believe that spirit can only do for me what it can do through me. And that the best ability that I could work on is availability. So the more available I am to be used by something greater than myself, the more opportunity I have to experience what I desire. And so I think that we've been taught a sort of like horse before the cart before the horse idea, where we've deified or demonized money. Now, I go on podcasts all the time, and somebody asked me a few years ago, they said, what's the thing? You've been coaching for since 2005, 2006. What's the thing? And I said, the thing is easy. It's parents, sex, and money. You can run from parents, or at least you think you can. Sex comes on and off, but money you interact with every single day. So if you have money trauma and you interact with it every day, you are reinforcing that which you do not desire over and over and over again. Now, to give some of the fellas here a little bit of backstory, 2013, 2012, going into 2013, I realized I had a moment driving in my beat up Prius, coming back from Malibu to LA, where I needed gas. And I knew I had $8 in my account. And I don't know if you guys have ever been there where you're like, all right, I'm not going to overdraw. but like I'm in a situation, right? So I pull over this Exxon Mobil. I put $4 in my Prius, and while I'm sitting there, I just have this like come to Jesus moment where I'm like, yo, what am I missing here? And please in the comments if you ever had this moment where you're like, I'm a good person. Like I almost was pleading with God. I'm like, what the fuck did I miss? Like I'm really a good human and I'm broke as hell with now $4 in my account. And I'm a grown ass man. So God, please just what am I supposed to do here? Right? Drop a 1 in the comments if you ever had that moment. Well, what I did was in that moment, I called my mom and I said, can I come back home? Now, the craziest part is I had just met the woman in my dreams. And she had 3 guys after her. One of them is a dude named Tyson Beckford, who was like this Ralph Lauren supermodel dude who's been on Oprah and all that stuff. Another one, who she was dating at the time, was a guy named Jay Ellis, who was in the star of a show called Insecure and on the new Top Gun and a bunch of other shows. And another one is this guy named Ramon, and then me. So four of us. Those 3 were already rich and famous and like buff guys. I was 155 pounds. And right now I'm about 190. So you can imagine how much smaller I was. Same height, 155 pounds. Broke as a joke. And I met her. And then a month later, I'm like, hey, I want to marry you. And I got to move in with my mom. And so I moved in with my mom, not with my tail tucked, but I moved in with her from the conversation of there's got to be something I'm missing when it comes to this money thing and this abundance thing. And so I'm going to go figure it out. I'm going to use the resources, which is I manifested a mom that has a house that I could live in, and I'm going to go all in on myself. Well, that year, I went from $36,000 a year to 150. The next year, I went from 150 to 300,000. The next year, I went from 300 to 600,000. The next year, I went from 600,000. I leaped up to 1.2 million. Next year after that, 1.6. Next year after that, 2.3. And I just kept going. And I'm sharing that not to impress you, but to impress upon you that I'm not just a dude who wrote a book on theory. I fucking figured it out. No, I had no rich friends. My family was poor. There was no like thing. I just had to sit there and be in what am I missing? And what I figured out was that the nervous system was the key to the whole thing. Identity and nervous system. I was working on my thoughts. I was trying to be better with my feelings. I was doing all the right actions. I don't know if you guys ever been in that space where you're like, I'm doing what they fucking say in the books and the podcast, but it's not working. Well, there's something above the books and the podcast and all that stuff. And it is, do you have the identity and the nervous system, somatic body, I say all the time, to me, God is like electricity. Electricity literally never says no. It only has one question, and that question is, do you have the infrastructure for what you are plugging up? And at the time, I had the infrastructure for $36,000 a year, $8 in my account. I had the infrastructure and the embodiment around surfing, around doing ayahuasca ceremonies, around doing transcendental meditation. I was doing all the spiritual stuff, but I was not working on the identity and the somatic body when it came to money and business and holding more. Robert, change the fucking game, bro. That's, to me, like, there is nothing more important than recalibrating our nervous systems. Because from what I understand, from a science and biology perspective, our nervous systems are formed between 0 and 7. Between 0 and 7, all kinds of trauma and shame and pain and your parents and the bullying and all the other stuff occurs, and our bodies take these shapes. And if we do not give the body the signal that it is safe again, we will stay in the shape. And then we will form masks and identities around the shape. And then what tends to happen is people get to about 50, 55, they get to their midlife awakening and they go, fuck that. but then they don't know what to do with it because they've been wearing the mask for so long. The gift I got was I was so not okay with being broke in that way that I broke the mask earlier. So I'm gonna let that sit there for a moment, but that's a little bit of my story and what I've been writing about in the book.
Yeah. And, as I'm reading Spiritual Millionaire, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I I'll be honest, and I'm probably
Mm-hmm.
not the only one. I go, okay, no more of this new thought, new age, woo woo, vibrational, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Heard it all before. Just repeat. And as I'm reading it, I'm having this interesting experience because I think I've become fairly good at being the witness or observer of
Mm-hmm.
myself. And as I'm reading, everything I read, and honestly, 100% of everything I've read so far, I can't disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
100%. I go, okay, yeah, okay, yeah. And I notice resistance and not wanting to believe it and not wanting to accept it and wanting to dismiss it. And and you talk about trauma in the book as you've said, and the traumas that affect us. And yeah, I've been looking at my relationship with money for quite some time. I've often said, well, money isn't that important to me. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the fuck it is. I like to
Yes,
be
it
able to
is.
pay my bills. I've been with less than $8 in my account before. I've been there. I've done that. I borrowed from Peter to pay Paul for a good part of my adult life.
Yep.
And it felt normal. It felt normal to my nervous system. It felt
Facts.
shitty, but it felt normal. And so as I'm, reading through Spiritual Millionaire, like I said, there's this part of me going, all right, I can't disagree with that. I can't find fault in that, but there's got to be something wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just watching my nervous system resist. So
Mm-hmm.
I want to read something from the book, and I want to read it out loud, and I want to ask the people, all you guys, just notice your nervous systems. Don't even worry about the words all that much. Notice your nervous systems. Do you want to shut down? Do you get distracted? Do you go away? Do you resist? Are you going bullshit, bullshit, bullshit? Right? It's just a paragraph. Um, this is early in your book, Preston, and it's called "I Am Money Magnetized." And it says, "I stand here in the full power of my divine inheritance, claiming the truth that I am money, a money magnet. I am one with the limitless source, vibrating at the frequency of abundance, wealth flowing to me like rivers of liquid gold. I command money to appear in my life boldly, freely, and unceasingly. Every fiber of my being pulses with prosperity, and every breath draws riches from all directions. Lack is a lie. An illusion I shatter with the force of my knowing. I am worthy, ready, and open to receive all that is mine by divine right. Money seeks me out, finds me, fills my life to overflowing, and I give thanks as I circulate this wealth, lifting all in its path, and so it is, done and done. So I'm also invite guys in the chat box. What happened in your body while I read that? I was kind of watching corner of my eye of Preston's body, and he was dancing over there. What happened in your body? What was your sense? Were you going? Did your intellect want to dismiss it as new age, woo woo, mumbo jumbo? Yeah, horseshit. Did you go? Well, I think that's true, but that feels weird. Oh man, I have a hard time, getting close to. Yeah, what was your experience? Excitement, feels good. Hell yes to that reading. I've touched, felt clean and open. Wishful thinking, yeah. Body was eager to resist it. Feel it. Frustration, I'm not there yet. Beautiful affirmation. Feels true, but not real for me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd rather hear the list of wealth excluding money. Yeah, that's what we do right now. To talk to me about abundance, I'm all right with that, but not money, not money. And
Yes.
one more other quote from your book. You wrote, What most spiritual people do is to demonize money, making it bad, wrong, and dirty, and therefore repelling it. Kind of like my spiritual development did around sex. Let's make it bad, wrong, and dirty. Let's push it away. Or they deify it, making it our God, constantly chasing it from lack and scarcity and limitation, and therefore repelling it. So yeah, we I go back. I love the part about the nervous system. If our nervous system is shutting down and closing and reacting and pushing away and feeling awkward and out of balance just from that paragraph, that's something I got to pay attention to. There's a story in that. I've got to acknowledge the story of my nervous system having a difficult time, as you would say, vibrationally matching with those words. Okay, so how do we rewire our nervous systems?
Yes. Oh, so good. First of all, just thank you for reading that. That was in the book. It's called an abundance activator. And it's a version of a spiritual mind treatment, which comes from the Church of Religious Science, and is something that I used to study and was being set up to be a deacon or a pastor behind Michael Beckwith, but I quit twice, so I'm a failed pastor. However,
Me too. I only quit once, though.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so let's start with in the book Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh, or God, really, let's say God, says, uh, what you resist persists,
Hmm.
and what you truly look at disappears. Now, that's the second part of that one I want to really like pull apart for all of us. What does it mean? Like, like sit in that and maybe write in the comments. What you truly look at disappears. What could that mean? And Robert, what do you hear when I in that statement? What you resist persists,
Yeah.
but what you truly look at disappears.
I had a conversation yesterday on an interview, and the guy brought up something like that. He said, I'm a runner. And he said, about 10 miles into a run, there's a bone in my foot that I didn't even know existed that starts hurting. And the
Mm,
more I resist it and want it, the more it hurts and affects everything I do. And I gave the example when I mentioned, I had a tumor blocking my small intestine. I was in pain 24/7 for months with no idea what was causing that. Nobody could find it.
mm,
And
mm.
as long as I resisted it, it hurt. The
That.
only solution I ever found until a surgeon took the tumor out was to surrender into it and breathe into it. And once I started surrendering and breathing, people would ask me, Robert, are you feeling better? And I said, well,
Mm.
I don't know if I'm actually getting better or just feeling better, just doing better at feeling bad. So
Yes.
when I was
Yes.
able to just breathe and accept and go, this might be killing me. I don't know what it is, but okay, okay.
Yes.
And just breathe, it wouldn't hurt so much. And I would quit noticing it. It would like move to the background.
Mm, mm. Okay. I love this. Yes, yes, and more yes. I'm gonna jump around a little bit, but I'll make it all make sense. So I have a belief that us humans, there's four aspects of what it means to be human. We are biological beings. We are linguistic beings, which means we build worlds with our language. For instance, without the language of door and doorknob, getting out of a room would be very challenging. But the moment I have language for door and doorknob, the world opens for me. So that's number two. Number three, we are social and historical beings. This is the one I want to point at. And number four, we are quantum beings. But let's go back to number three. We are social and historical beings, meaning all of us were born into beliefs and interpretations. Born in beliefs and interpretations. What are some of the beliefs and interpretations you were born into as it pertains to, let's start with money? Put it in the comments. And Robert, you could just yell them out, whatever's
Yeah.
true for you.
I'll go first. Money is bad. Money is evil. Rich people are all sinners. Having too much money is dangerous.
Burden, hard to get,
Hard to,
can't be
yeah.
frivolous. Yes. Okay, so watch this. Going back to just keep in the air what you resist persist and what you truly look at disappear. So if it's true that we were born into beliefs and interpretations, right? How many of you were born into the belief and interpretation that big boys don't cry? Because that's what I was born into, right? So I'm born into beliefs and interpretations around what it means to be a man, how you provide, what your dick should look like, how you should perform during sex. All of these things are beliefs and interpretations. I was born into a society that already had an idea about black men, little black boys, all of the above. But what you resist persists and what you truly look at disappears. So the moment I have, there's so much goodness coming through. So one of the principles in the book and that I live by is that elevation requires separation. Elevation requires separation. So if I'm born into a belief and an interpretation that money is the root of all evil, that it's bad, that rich people are greedy, that it's hard to come by, that's X, Y, and Z, these are all someone else's interpretation. If I can create distance from their interpretation, everybody follow me so far? Now I get to decide how I want to interact with it. Now, if I can be separate from the interpretation, then I can see it differently, yes or no? Then I might be able to go, this is my dad's, his dad's, and his dad's. This is my mom's shit right here. That's not mine. So what's mine? What do I want to choose? No, watch this side note. Any of you ever been around somebody or been passed up by somebody who you believe is not as good as you? Be honest. You ever like saw somebody get rich and you're like, what the fuck is that? Or somebody get a hot ass wife and you're like, bro, what? So what's the difference? There's only one difference. It's that person believed that that was possible for them.